And welcome once again to another edition of Community Viewpoint. I'm John Pawlak, your host. And summer's coming. It's coming with a vengeance. It's going to be 90 degrees next week. So to celebrate that, we have with us Mike Jerry, who is an amateur astronomer, would you say, or semi-pro?
Nobody's paid me yet.
Okay. So I just found out Mike is it has been set up down in a little place I just love. It's my second home. It's a place called Tacopa. So we're going to have Mike tell us a little bit about what he has to offer and when he does it and what we would see. I know what we would see because I saw Saturn over there with the moons and everything. So I just love looking through the lens over there. But tell us a little bit about what you have there, Mike.
Well, I have been an amateur astronomer for most of my life, and used a lot of different kinds of telescopes, from the first rickety little Sears telescope my parents bought me when I was 10, and I've had an on and off love relationship with it. And a couple of years ago, I got into something new called EAA, or electronically assisted astronomy. And that is where, instead of putting an eyepiece in the eyepiece holder of your telescope, you actually put a camera in it and broadcast that image on your computer screen. And it allows you to see so much more depth and detail than what you can see with the naked eye, even through a very large telescope. And so that then transitioned during these pandemic times, when you can't really have face-to-face or in-person star parties because it's not appropriate, to taking those images and live streaming them, broadcasting them on YouTube or Zoom or something like that. And so for the last close to a year, last several months, I have been broadcasting my live streams on YouTube for my astronomy sessions. So I will go out for a couple of hours and I'll put on a microphone. And so you'll hear my voice. And then what you see on the screen is what my telescope is actually seeing. So let me pull up. Okay, let me actually I'm going to share the screen and show you what my actual telescope looks like.
Okay, great.
Okay, we're going to do that. All right, and then there. Okay, can you? I'm assuming.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
Okay, so this up here is the actual telescope. This is a 6-inch imaging Newtonian. It's a reflector telescope. It's a 6-inch in diameter, and up here is where the eyepiece normally goes. And so instead of putting an eyepiece in there, I put the camera in there, and this is the mount. It's a Celestron Evolution mount that actually controls the scope and moves it around the sky and points it to all the different objects that I see. And then this is the mount that it goes on, the wedge that it goes on, that keeps it polar aligned so that the scope tracks the sky very accurately as the sky rotates. Because what I'm typically doing is I point at an object, and I will turn the camera on and start taking exposures, and the telescope has to track very accurately with the sky in order for an exposure to not get smeared or blurred. And you can see down here, this is the table that I'm actually sitting at with the laptop, and so this is where it all happens as I'm doing my live streams live. So this is what my setup looks like, and it's not very expensive. I think I spent $1,000 for the whole thing. It does not have to be very expensive to do this kind of thing. But what really helps is having dark skies. And so out here in Tacopa, we have some pretty darn dark skies, and it makes it really nice to be able to do that stuff and get some really nice images.
So if just you by yourself, if you want to take a real beautiful picture of a planet, you probably couldn't do that for the exposure time you would need manually.
Yeah, well, yes. I tend to not do any planetary stuff. This telescope is really designed for larger, fainter type objects. It collects a lot of light. Planets are very small and very bright because they're so close to our sun and they're reflecting so much light. So I don't do very many, I don't really look at the planets very often at all. I look at other things like nebulae and star clusters and galaxies.
Because we had been doing that. I'm from a different generation, I think, just prior to when you got out there, because I missed your presentations. I was there with another gentleman, and then Mark Hamlin. I was there also for him when he lives there full time.
Yes.
He was doing presentations also.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. He had a nice 16-inch scope that Mark would use out here. I looked through his scope a number of times as well when I first moved out here several years ago. And then I just decided to resurface the hobby for myself and started getting back into it myself here. And now I just do this from my own backyard. And the beauties of modern technology and YouTube streaming is that I can now share what I'm doing in my own backyard by myself with anybody who wants to show up. And so that's when I started doing my live streams, and it's been a lot of fun doing that.
So I just met you this morning, and then I know you of your website, but I haven't had a chance to view some of your evening views. I think I saw they're like 2 hours long a lot of times.
Yeah. Typically, the live streams will go for 2 to 3 hours, depending on how late I start and how tired I am, and what the weather is doing, if I'm freezing cold or not. So they will vary in those lengths. And the nice thing about the YouTube live streams is once the live stream is ended, they just turn into regular YouTube videos. So you can still go back, and if you go onto my YouTube channel, you can still see all of the live streams I've done over the last several months.
Yes, I saw that. So when I have a chance later on this evening, I'll go look at them also, and then we'll put the your address for YouTube on there at the end of the show, so people could view that also. So you do this on what time of the month? When there's no moon, hopefully.
Correct. Yes. So basically the 2 weeks of the month when it's dark sky, which is typically a few days after full moon, which is right now, to a few days before, to a few days after new moon. And that's when this moon is not in the sky, or I have at least a 2-hour window of there being no moon in the sky. And that makes the contrast as high as possible. When you're looking at a really faint object, you want that background sky to be as black as possible for it to stand out. And so having no moon in the sky really helps. Yeah,
because Tacoma is pretty good for dark skies. There's a little bit of bleed through from Vegas there, just like there is even in Death Valley. But Tonopah is good also. Grand Canyon is fantastic. Have you been in the Grand Canyon?
I have not done any observing in the Grand Canyon, no, but I know it's very dark. And they have a big annual star party down there, both on the north and south rims, that hopefully at someday I will get to.
Yeah, because camping, you get out of your tent in the middle of the night, and then you look up and you have to duck because the stars, they seem like they're just above your head. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Yes, so, it certainly is.
So you're set up where? From behind the bistro?
No, this is actually in my backyard. This is in Tacoma. This isn't down near the hot springs. This is actually in what we call the Heights. So it's up in the kind of the neighborhood section of Tacoma. So this is just right in my backyard.
Okay. I would ask you about where you live compared to other people, but the other people don't know. You don't have to know that, because I've lived there off and on for quite a few years. And you've been there for a while?
Yeah, I've been there. I'll be 6 years, I believe. This coming fall, it'll be 6 years that I moved here.
Oh, I'm sorry that I missed you. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's so this is literally in my backyard. And I can show you actually the bottom here. This is my spare, no expense cement block pier that it all sits on a cement pad in my backyard. So the cement blocks and the wedge part here, the very bottom part, this part here, actually just stay outside all the time. I just cover it up. And the stuff that has the electronics and the motors and the sensing, the scope and the mount, that stuff goes in at night. But everything else just sits in my backyard and waits for the next session, whenever that will be, which will be tonight, Friday night, and maybe even tomorrow night, Saturday night as well. The weather is looking pretty good.
So for us to share this with you, it's via the internet, not stopping over to your home, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yep. Which is a good practice during the pandemic. So yes.
Yes.
In fact, when people do show up here, typically they produce a little too much light anyway because they drive up, and so that kind of messes things up. So yeah, I definitely do it alone.
Okay, then. And then, do you have any more pictures or anything?
Yeah, yeah, I can show you example of a few different things that I do look at. So here is an image of the Pleiades, or the Seven Sisters, which is a star, basically a big open star cluster that is one of the closest star clusters to our to Earth. And you can see that there is little clouds, wispy clouds of nebulosity that there are surrounding these stars. So it glows very nicely when you take a long enough exposure picture of it.
Wow.
And there used to be a theory that the gases they were in actually formed those stars, because that's how stars form. They start in large gases, clouds of gas. They coalesce and condense into stars and ignite, and then move out into the sky and move out into space. But now they're thinking that this star cluster is just moving through a gaseous region. So that is the Pleiades. And this one here is called the Running Man. If you go out in the night sky right now and see the constellation Orion, and most people can find Orion, and you see the 3 stars in his belt that go left to right, and then below that are 3 stars that hang down that are his sword. And this asterism, the Running Man Nebula, is actually the top star, quote unquote star. This actually forms the top star in his belt that we see as just a star. But when you look at it closely, it's actually a nebula with a little bit of star cluster in it.
Wow, it's so scary.
This is the Great Orion Nebula up here.
Yeah.
That's the middle star in the sword, and this is the bottom star in the sword. This is Barnard's cluster here, and so that's another thing there. And then this is Alnitak. This bright star in the center here is Alnitak, which is the left-hand star of Orion's belt. And around it are some beautiful nebulae here. This is the Flame Nebula up here in the upper left. And this is the Horsehead Nebula down here in the red region, the red hydrogen region down here. Hydrogen tends to be red. So this is the Horsehead Nebula down here. So this is a particularly beautiful region of space to image, which is why I saved the best for last here.
So, and then it's the end of the show also. So it's been great meeting you, Mike. And so hopefully sometime we'll meet in Tacoma. And
that'd be great, John.
I don't want to drop any names on TV, but I should see you sometime. I'll mention to my friends that I talked to you, and then hopefully we'll see you in the near future then. So good luck with the show tonight.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
And hope you enjoyed it, folks. And we'll have the website up there for you to see. So thank you again, and thank you for watching. Good evening.